Let's speak now to the Acting Director General for the Department of Agriculture, Dipepeneneng Serage. DG, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Let's perhaps start with what the implication for the Eastern Cape is now that the foot and mouth disease has been sort of brought to an end in the Eastern Cape. We know that the implication for the export market, at least, has been that there's been severe restrictions on the export of livestock from South Africa to the markets that we typically would export to. Does it now mean that the Eastern Cape is in the clear and can once again begin exporting?
Thank you and good evening. Thank you very much for having us. Yes, this is a welcome news. It means Eastern Cape can begin to get to where it used to be. And as you'd remember, Eastern Cape was one of those provinces that never had the outbreak. So especially the dairy farmers in the Eastern Cape, the human stop area, we're happy that we have reached this stage now.
Yeah, let's talk about biosecurity measures and the enforcement thereof. A lot of farmers have complained in the past that it's become incredibly expensive to enact some of the protocols, such as rapid and frequent testing, diagnostics, and of course, paying for the vaccines, especially given that vaccines are not locally produced and manufactured. How does the department assist with the biosecurity measures, and what is expected of farmers?
In fact, this shouldn't be difficult. It's just that you get a group of very good and careful farmers, and you get a few of those that are reckless. Actually, it shouldn't be this very difficult, because we know that if farmers were to make sure that upon buying new livestock, isolate the new livestock for 30 days before introducing them to the main herds, wouldn't be here. Because if farmers, before they take the animals to the auctions, wherever else that they want to trade in animals, they were to observe this basic biosecurity step of isolating new herds to the main herds, that wouldn't be here. So some, especially those that are speculators, those that are the agents, basically they buy animals from one farm to the other, from one auction to the other auction. They don't even spend a day. They make sure that the cattle are sold at the next auction. Those are the farmers, those are the speculators that are actually creating this problem.
Yeah. Other than isolation of new stock from the main herd, what are the unified FMD protocols that have to be observed and adhered to?
Yeah, it starts with one, before you buy livestock, you need to know the history, brief history of where these animals were. Before you load animals onto a truck at an auction or wherever else, you need to ensure that the truck has been disinfected, because this is a virus disease, and it's transmitted by in the most cases by contact. So you find that farmers go to the auctions, they use the same truck, or they hire the same truck that transported animals from one place to the other. That's where the biggest problem is. But what we're trying to do now, which we hope all farmers will play along, is to ensure that all animals are going to be branded and going to be identified, and all animals, before they get to the auction, they're going to have to ensure that there's a certificate, there's a clearance. We're going to deploy animal health technicians at all auctions. So those animals whose history is not known will not be admitted at the auction. We have to take this drastic step because some farmers are not playing along. And you spoke of the issue of the vaccines. It cost us a lot to just get vaccines on something that is easily preventable.
Does the state pay for the vaccination of animals suspected, or at least animals and livestock that are exhibiting clinical signs of foot and mouth disease?
Yes. So what we do is we expect that the vaccination actually is the last step of the last resort. Ideally, farmers should be able to not have the virus. No, it doesn't fall from the sky, as ministers always say. It's not like all of a sudden it's a disaster that just befall anyone. The foot and mouth disease outbreak happens out of recklessness of farmers. Now, the vaccines, yes, we buy vaccines because foot and mouth disease is a trade-sensitive disease, and it's a very critical that we should contain it and control it so that we can be able to trade with the neighboring countries. And if we are not able to export to other far far countries abroad. It is because, as you remember, most shops that you have, your ShopRite Checkers and your Checkers and others, do exist in South Africa and also have trading in other neighboring countries. So when we've got the foot and mouth disease outbreak, trade to those countries also gets affected, and you can understand the effect that the outbreak has. So we want to ensure that farmers adhere to basic, I keep on saying basic, but because it's not difficult really. If all farmers can just be careful, do not recklessly move animals, do not sneak animals out of the protection zone, we wouldn't be having these outbreaks.
Why isn't there more stricter enforcement and the meting of sanctions against farmers who aren't adhering to the protocols and the restrictions?
Minister has issued actually what we call Section 9(1)(b), which basically says anyone who is found to be moving animals without proper authorization, anyone who is found to be moving animals without proper animal health declaration, knowing the health status of an animal, is actually breaking the law. So we will be talking to the municipalities and ensure that, in fact, even now, if anyone is to be found with animals transporting animals without paper authorization, is committing a crime.
Typically, what does the sanction look like for somebody who commits that transgression?
Yeah, the person will have to be taken to court, and it's not at the moment with the act that we have, it becomes too tedious to follow it up. But it's about, I don't have the figures with me, but it will something in the region of about 2,000 per crime and per offense. So it's not a lot of money at the moment, but that will register a criminal record for that person. But we will be changing this law soon, and we hope to have the new law kicking in, which is called Animal Health Act, which repeals the Animal Diseases Act of 1984. So we've got a 2002 Act, which has been assented into law. We're just waiting for the commencement date that the president will have to allocate to it. And once that's done, then everything else will be easier. Then we'll be able to prosecute and follow those that are recklessly moving livestock.
Just lastly, there's a promise of locally producing and manufacturing vaccines in South Africa. Will it be state produced or will it be manufactured by the private sector?
It will be manufactured by the state, the Agricultural Research Council, which is an entity of our department. In fact, everything else is ready. We've ordered equipment. Everything is on course. We hope to have our first rollout in March 2026. So we'll start slower as and when the production goes into full swing. We should be able to take over and supply vaccines for locally manufactured vaccines. But let me just add that, as we know, depending on the amount that is required, I mean, all medicines that we use, even for human health, some of it gets imported. So we're not saying we're not going to import at all, but the intention is, of course, to be able to produce vaccines, and we've got everything ready now. This week, we call this mid-scale. There is a bigger plan to have a bigger production facility, which we're still talking to the National Treasury about, so that we can be able to have the capacity to produce enough vaccine even to sell to the SADC countries. But the one that is starting in March will be what we call the mid-scale. So it's a stopgap mechanism.
Yeah. Dipepeneng, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Dipepeneng Serage is the Acting Director General for the Department of Agriculture. A little bit later on, we're going to be speaking to agricultural economist Wandile Sihlobo on the economic impact that foot and mouth disease has had and what the net positive effect will be now that the Eastern Cape has been able to contain the spread of foot and mouth disease.